Hey everybody, today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 things you can do to improve your kitchen game. There are times that I've gotten into my kitchen, started preparing a meal, and then looked at the clock and realized I've been working for an hour and a half and hadn't even turned on the stove. At that point, I start to get cranky, I'm hungry, and I'm frustrated. And none of those things are really conducive to getting a person into the kitchen more. I know I'm not the only person that's experienced this. It's a very common thing. So my goal today is to help you remove a few of those things that are taking unnecessary time when you're in the kitchen, all in the hopes of getting you cooking more. The 3 things we're going to talk about are knives, number 2, organization, and number 3 is going to be building on those first 2 things. That will be cooking more. So, knives. No, you do not need new knives. The ones you have are probably perfectly fine. But with those knives, you need to learn to take care of them properly, and you need to learn to use them properly. So first step is taking care of them. This is for everybody out there, or almost everybody. You need to sharpen your knives, period. This is me included. There are some knives in my drawer that are terrible. I call them broken because the job of a knife is to cut things. And my knives sometimes don't cut things, so I call them broken. So I need to take care of my broken knives, and you do too. You have 2 options for sharpening your knives. Now, what sharpening is when the edge of your knife is not pointy anymore and it becomes dull. It becomes rounded. So you need to either sharpen it yourself by using a whetstone, something that's going to grind the steel down, or a small sharpening tool. Or you can take it in to a professional. They do not cost very much to get your knives done, and you probably will only have to do it once a year. Go get your knife sharpened. It will make your life a million times better. The second thing with maintaining a knife is using what's called a sharpening steel. This is a terrible name because a sharpening steel does not actually sharpen your knife. It only maintains the edge. There's a good chunk of folks out there that will already have a sharpening steel in their knife block or in their knife drawer. It's a long metal rod with a handle on the bottom. What this does, again, is maintains the edge that you already have on your knife. So if your edge on your knife is round, it's going to maintain that round edge, and that's not going to do anything. You actually need to grind that steel down back to a point. Take a look on YouTube. YouTube is going to have excellent videos on how to use a sharpening steel to maintain your edge. I don't have anything out there yet. I plan on it at some point, but right now, go to YouTube. YouTube will also have excellent videos on how to use a sharpening stone or a sharpening tool to sharpen your knives. So that's what you're going to do. First of all, sharpen your knives or get them sharpened. Number 2, either purchase or find your sharpening steel and learn how to use it, and use it every time after you clean your knife before you put it away after you've used it. The reason we want our knives sharp, on top of doing the job faster, is that they're actually safer. When you have a dull knife, you have to put more pressure on it to get the job done. So if you're pushing harder on that knife, you're going to have a little bit less control over it. And if that knife slips, you're putting a lot of pressure while it slips. And unfortunately, that slip doesn't usually go in a place that's okay. It'll slip into your finger or into your hand, and then you have a mess. If you have a very sharp knife, you're putting very light amounts of pressure and you have a lot more control over it. So a sharp knife is going to be much safer than a dull knife. That's on top of doing the job of cutting vegetables, cutting meats better, okay? So again, step 1, sharpen your knives, make sure that you're using your sharpening steel. The next thing with knives is we have to learn how to use them properly. When you know how to use a knife properly, you're going to be more efficient with it, and it's just gonna go faster. Like everything you do will go faster, but it takes time to do this. This is a learned skill, especially because so many of us have bad habits. So go on YouTube, take a look on basic knife skills or basic vegetable cutting, and it will show you a few good methods. And there's not just one right thing. There's a couple very common things that you definitely should do, but just practice some things. Every time you pick up the knife to just slice a tomato, to cut a piece of chicken for a stir fry, to, cut an onion, do it the proper way. In a short period of time, you'll have learned and gained some muscle memory on doing that, and it will reduce your prep time for your vegetables and your proteins on the cutting board. Because I know cutting vegetables, cutting onions, they're terrible to cut, and cutting all the stuff that you need to make a meal can take a long time if you're not quite sure how to do it properly. So learn how to use your knife properly. After all that, after you've done your maintenance, you've learned to care for your knife, you're caring for it properly, you've learned to use your knife, then if you decide that you need a new knife, you have a good base to go out and pick one. One of my chefs said once when I asked him what made a good knife, he said something that feels good in your hand and something that you can take care of. And I have kept that, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful way to gauge a knife. There's a lot of premium knife brands out there that I've picked up, and I just don't like how they feel. They're gonna either press into the wrong part of my hand when I'm cutting, or they're just too long or too heavy or too light. And you're not gonna know that until you've used a knife properly and you've maintained it before. So do that with the knives that you already have. I guarantee you they will get an edge back. It will be wonderful. And then if you decide to, go and get new knives, okay? So that takes care of step one, knives. We learn to maintain them, and then we learn how to use them. The next thing we're gonna talk about is organization. Organization is huge. There's a few people close to me that when I watch them cooking, I see them grab one or two things out of the fridge, cut that up, put it in the pan, start to cook, then start grabbing more stuff, then get another pot on with more stuff. And then there's some urgency and almost a little bit of panic because the stuff you put on the stove is cooking faster than you thought it would, or what you're doing is taking longer. That 30 minutes that they said to cook something for went real fast, and they're not ready for the next step. So what I'd like you to do, always, 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 read your entire recipe first and get everything you need for that recipe ready to go. All your vegetables cut, all your spices measured out, all your liquids measured out, everything in separate containers on your countertop or right next to your stove or wherever, completely ready to go, completely chopped. Because again, if you get something on and it says cook for 30 minutes, you're gonna find that that 30 minutes goes by really, really quick and you're not gonna be able to keep up. So instead of panicking, you have everything ready to go, and then you turn on your oven, you turn on your stove, and you get it going at that point, and you can concentrate on just the cooking part and not have to worry about the rest of it. If you find that you've gotten everything prepared and your stuff's cooking and you have extra time, then you do your dishes. Because that way, you won't have 2 sinks full of dishes after your meal, and that's a really wonderful feeling, is to not have to do any more than 1 pot, 1 pan, and 2 plates or 4 plates at the end of your dinner. So, organization. Prepare absolutely everything before you turn on the stove or before you start mixing. Get everything completely ready to go and measured so that you can just keep adding as you need it. It's better to be bored when you're cooking because you've over-prepared than to be panicking because you're not ready for the next step. So if you've done both of those things, you've learned your knives, you've gotten good at organization, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is to cook more. Pick new recipes, or just pick old recipes that you wanna do over again, but just cook more. The more you cook, the more comfortable you will get, especially if you're actively trying to improve your skills. If you decide to pick a recipe specifically because it's got this type of thing in it, whether it's a specific vegetable or a specific type of cutting or a different sauce. Actively learn. Don't just buzz through it. Really take a look at what you're doing, how things go together, and taste as you go. Okay, we'll cover that in another one. Tasting as you go is very important, but cook more. Just get in there. And if you can reduce the amount of time that you spend because you don't have to use your knife like a hammer, you know how to hold it properly and how to cut a pepper in not a very long period of time, and you're completely organized, you're gonna shave off a lot of time that you spend on unnecessary things. So try those things out. Let me know how it goes. And remember, cooking is supposed to be at least a little bit fun. So if we can make it a little bit more fun, we'll get you cooking more and trying awesome new things. Have an awesome one, and we will see you next time.